It's the Dead Air Horror Review Show, and I'm
Hey
your
TJ.
host,
Hey
Tim
TJ.
Armstrong. And over there is Ian McKay, or the Beanie Boys. The
It's
Beanie
Mackay to
Boys.
you.
The Beanie. Is it Mackay
It
or
is.
McKay?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's your buddy. More about
That's
that
yeah,
on
I
the
don't know if
After
he likes me
Dark.
so much, but sure as hell love him.
Oh,
Is that an Emma Ruth Rundle shirt?
it is. It actually is an Emma
Did you see her
Rundle
live?
shirt. I did not. No, unfortunately not. I would love to,
You're
but
just a
no.
supporter.
Yeah, I mean, I do. Is that a thing now? You have to go see a band live
You
to wear
do.
their shirts.
Yeah. I'm gonna
Jesus.
quiz you on on her top three songs too. Not that you like, but most
God
people
damn. Like it's like now it's like, oh shit. You can like their albums, but like if you never saw them live, so shit,
yeah.
I better get rid of all of my shirts for Black Sabbath and well that's it. Actually I did see Black Sabbath, so
You did it,
that's
Ozfest, right?
no, I never saw them at Ozfest. Technically, I've never seen Black Sabbath with Ozzy. I saw Heaven and Hell, which was Dio Sabbath,
Oh, okay.
right before Dio died. It was awesome. So I've never seen Ozzy Sabbath. I've seen Ozzy and I've seen him play some Sabbath songs, but I've never seen Sabbath.
He died right
So
after you saw him. So it was his dying wish to see TJ,
died
have
Dio.
TJ watch him perform.
Dio died. He died like a year after, and it was
Okay.
really sad because he has a Dio has a song called "Die Young," and he like had this whole. I guess he was sick at the time, and he had this whole thing about how like don't actually die young, like it's not great, and like
Yeah.
all this shit. It's kind of sad, and then he dies a year later. But anyway,
Anyway,
that's not why we're here.
what's
We
this podcast
watched.
again? Oh yeah, horror movies.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's the
that's what
Beanie
we do.
Boys podcast. It's cold outside, folks. Anyway, we watched Peter Jackson's Bad Taste, a visionary film in the genre of like no budget filmmaking. Like this
Which
movie,
we're huge fans of.
oh yeah, I mean, go back to Bloody Muscle Bodybuilder in Hell or whatever. I mean that got very high marks on this show. I
This is
had
this
I
this is Peter Jackson January that we're gonna do for the next
yeah
several weeks or 2 weeks. How we only have 2 weeks left, but we're gonna extend it. We're gonna do three of Peter Jackson's horror films, starting with
yeah
Bad Taste.
yeah, which I believe is his first film, just full
As far as
stop. I
I
think it
know,
was his
yeah.
first movie. I am a big fan of this movie. I used to have a bootleg VHS tape of this and uh Brain Dead, aka Dead Alive, which I think we're watching next week. Um, but yeah, this movie is just a treat. Like you can tell, like it's very very rough around the edges. Hilariously, this movie is so low budget that the final ending credits aren't even cropped correctly. So like the actors' names are not even on the screen right, which I thought was funny
Really,
as
I
hell.
have
It's
to
like,
go back and watch. I didn't even notice it.
oh yeah, it's like whatever all their name. I can't remember any of the characters' names, but it's like they're all like Goobly and Boobly and Mitch, and
Yeah.
it's like their names are literally like half cropped out of the frame. So it's like, oops. Um, Peter Jackson
They were
himself,
doing reel to reel editing on their VCRs like we used to do with Anthony.
probably. I mean, honestly, probably not far from that.
Yeah.
Peter Jackson himself is in this movie, which is fun. For a long time, I actually thought he played two characters in this movie, but I was wrong. Um, I thought he played the alien guy, which he does, and then I thought he also played the guy that like dies and comes back to life and then keeps putting his brain back in. I thought that was Peter Jackson too.
Oh, you
Turns out
did?
just I feel like New Zealanders all just kind of look the same. So I think
There was
yeah,
a couple that looked just like Peter Jackson.
I thought that guy was Peter Jackson. Like if you look
Yeah.
at him, he looks like a shaved Peter Jackson. Peter Jackson also in this movie hilariously looks he's like a fucking vampire because he looks exactly the same to this day, which is
Yeah.
fucking crazy. Um, but yeah, this movie is it's like a 13-year-old's dream because it's just very gross. Like every time there could be something gross on screen, they
Yeah,
go the grossest way possible. It's super violent and just ridiculous and funny and
but violent in a PG-13 sort of way. Like it doesn't. None
oh
of it
yeah,
feels
it's like
or look.
cartoonish. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean there's a point literally in the movie where the guy cuts a hole in a wall and it's his exact friggin what do you call it, silhouette. It
yeah,
literally like Looney Tunes. I mean it's absolutely absurd.
yeah.
Um had you seen this before?
I had seen it like decades ago, so
Yeah,
it felt new to me again.
sure.
And I when I when I originally watched it, I don't think it ever really made a dent in how I felt about horror or these particular films. But now that I watch it, now that I appreciate all the 80s, really amateur quality. Well, this was his first film, to
Yeah.
be fair. So he I don't know what his backing was for this, if he had any financial backing to make this,
Yeah.
but you can feel that it's really low budge. But the story to me was so funny, and it kind of reminded me of like Shaun of the Dead, like that kind of humor. It was just maybe it's just that kind of like, yes, it's New Zealand, but it's not like it's hard to describe. It's not like American type humor. It's
No. It is very like of it's a very again, it's very like juvenile, like I guess I could say like European, but I don't even know. Like it feels that's a good way to put it though. It feels different. It does not feel like a typical like American gross out comedy.
yeah,
I guess the thing that sticks out like the most, and I always point this out, is that it's not sexual at all. Like there's no
yeah.
I don't there isn't a woman in this whole fucking movie, right?
Mm, no, I don't think there is.
Finally, right? I mean, am I right, guys? Jeez. Uh I'm kidding, of course. But I can't even make those jokes anymore because that we're gonna get like the fucking like Andrew Tate fans like these guys get it, you know, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
uh
We are going to attract the audience that we don't want.
yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean, whatever. All the incels' money spends the same anyway. But yeah, I don't actually feel that way.
yeah.
I love
DJ
women in
loves the
film.
ladies.
I do.
Um,
Um,
but yeah,
but
this. So, what about you? When was the last time you had seen this film? Because I know you've
oh
seen it.
God,
But
dude,
obviously, you had the bootleg. Also, let's talk about the bootleg.
I
Why
still
did
have the
you?
boot. I
Why did?
still have the bootleg. It's in my car. Actually, Gogs found it at his parents' house, and he gave it to me.
Why did you have the bootleg in the first place? Was it not
This movie
available?
was not available. No.
Really?
This and well maybe Dead Alive was available, but the version of Dead Alive that we got is edited. So like
Mhm.
Brain Dead was an unedited version of the movie. But yeah, I don't think you could get this.
I
Um
distinctly remember this movie
I
poster.
mean maybe eventually, but not when
Yeah,
like we were in high school. Like I'm sure you can get it now, but like back then.
yeah.
Because I don't
Um,
know about you kids these days, but like it used to be if you found out about like a rare or weird movie, it was a real task to try to find it. I mean, it wasn't like nowadays where, thanks to the internet, you could kind of find anything pretty quickly. And I mean, like, even if you're not like kind of savvy, like I would say I am, and I know a lot of different places to look, like Amazon Prime generally has
yeah.
most movies to either rent or buy or stream for free, and it just didn't used to be like that. I remember like, again, like going to horror conventions and comic book conventions, and there would just be tables and tables of VHS tapes and then later on bootleg DVDs. And it was stuff that was out of print or hard to find, or just stuff like mean, you still get that at horror shows now because there's a certain genre. I mean, it's not really a genre. I guess it's the wrong way to say it. But there's a certain class of movies that like never made it to DVD or Blu-ray. They got trapped to VHS. So there's like a fan
because
base
nobody
for those.
watched them.
Well, yeah, or they were, they were stuck to being on a rental store shelf, and they,
Yeah.
but like that's what horror fans, if nothing else, are rabid for, like the most obscure shit. You know what I mean? If you
Mm.
watch some horror, if you watched, one comes to mind, this movie called The Video Dead, which is a terrible movie. But like, if you watch The Video Dead on HBO when you were 9 years old and you want to watch that movie again because it made some kind of impact on you, then you have to find like a
Yeah.
bootleg DVD of it because it doesn't have, none of these boutique publishers are gonna pick it up and put it out. So yeah, there's I always kind of think fondly of those days in a weird way, the having to track down movies. There was a certain magic to, reading about a movie or something on like a message board or, a magazine or whatever, and then having to find it. And like sometimes having to like track it down was kind of exciting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I remember a very long time ago, I wanted to get a copy of Eraserhead. That was again impossible to find. Uh, there it was one version of the VHS that came out in the 80s, super limited run, no DVD until Lynch put out the DVD like in the early 2000s. And I remember I drove because they said they had a used copy at this place in Frederick. It was about an hour away from where I lived at the time, way back then. And a Wonder Book and Video, and they didn't have it. They sold it before I got there.
Mm.
It's just like it's just crazy. I don't know,
Still
but there was
feeling.
something kind of exciting about it. It's a treasure hunting.
I had the same issue, well, a similar issue with, do you remember the music store in Eldersburg Mall?
Oh yeah,
Um I
I
forgot the
can't
name.
remember what it was called, but it doesn't. Yeah.
Um and I remember I went there and I saw there was a copy of the Broken video, the Nine Inch Nails
Oh yeah,
video.
yeah, yeah.
And I had never seen it out in the wild before. I'm like, oh my God, I have to pick this up because I don't think I'll be able to find it anywhere else.
Yeah.
So I was so excited. I think I got it for $15-$20. Took it
Yeah.
home and it was nothing but snow.
Uh
Just
yeah,
nothing.
somehow someone gave I had a bootleg of that too with all the like Nine Inch Nails music videos on them, and it had the Happiness and Slavery
Happiness and
video
Slavery with like it
with
had all the intercut like torture
mhm,
scenes.
yep,
Yeah.
yep.
I was looking like high and low for that, and I was so
Yeah.
I thought I found the Holy Grail. I took it home, nothing but, and I had waited till my parents had like left or gone to
Of
bed, and
course,
I
yeah,
popped
yeah,
it
yeah.
in. It's like, oh, you got to be kidding me! I take it back to the store, and the guy's like, all sales final.
Ah, that sucks. But yeah, but anyway, that's
Anyway,
why I had to getting back to the movie. That's why I had this bootleg because I don't think you could get it any other way back then. And I was obsessed, as obsessed as I am with at horror movies now. I was even more obsessed back then because again, it was the scarcity of these things, and it was all in a lot of these movies. It was just like on lists and message boards like fucked up movies that they'll never release in America. You know what I mean? And it was like, I don't know, it felt like you were getting away with something. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like and it's a fun experience, and it's fun to. I always liked. I mean, I still to this day like having like a physical collection of movies, and this specifically was a great movie to show people. Like you want to see something just out of control, insane. You pop this in the VCR and it's hilarious. Like if
yeah.
people never heard of it, never seen it, they're like, what the fuck is this? The acting is kind of off. The fucking like the weird sounds that everyone makes for some reason, like the audio track is kind of off.
It's
Like
almost hard to call it a horror at all. It's
no,
more of a
it's like
comedy.
definitely like a horror comedy.
Yeah,
And it's funny because I feel like the central conceit is like really good, and I feel like you could actually write like a more serious movie around it. Like I kind of love the idea of like an alien, basically an alien McDonald's chain, like an
Yeah,
intergalactic McDonald's that they're like, oh, human meat is going to be like the next boom in fast food out there across the galaxy.
the
So we're going
plot
to
is
harvest Earth.
absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, also the structure of the plot is insane
yeah.
because like these guys that are affectionately referred to as the boys, they show up to this town because there was a supposed alien invasion, but you don't really they don't really explain how they know it was. They're just kind of they had like a hunch that it
So
was.
I didn't realize this during the movie because I think I had just missed it. But these guys, like this force, if you want to call them that, these like rogue kind of militiamen that were banded together to fight these aliens, they were actually called the Astro Investigation and
Right.
Defense Service, also known as AIDS.
Oh shit, I didn't catch that. I've never put that together. There's that line. He's like, "Man, I wish we could change that name." I didn't realize it's because it's an acronym for fucking AIDS. That's pretty funny.
um,
Um,
but yeah, so what did you the second or third time around? I don't know how many times you've seen this
oh
movie.
God, this is. I mean, it's probably honestly, dude, it's probably in the double digits because this again,
Yeah.
this is a movie that I used to like. One, it's a movie I used to just show normies all the time. It
Mhm.
was a movie that I just thought you could just pop on and people would be immediately entertained by how insane it is. And two, this is a movie like that I always had on the shelf that people would be like, "Oh, I've heard of this movie," especially
Yeah.
after Lord of the Rings came out. It's
Mhm.
like people. It was funny because like when Lord of the Rings blew up, like horror nerds knew who Peter Jackson was, but like regular people didn't really know who Peter Jackson was. And what was funny was to see like now I feel I mean obviously because Lord of the Rings was like incredibly successful, but like you'd be like if you said Peter Jackson to a normal person, they're like, oh, Lord of the Rings, you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
but like for me it's like this would I would put this on a lot. I would put on Meet the Feebles, which we were gonna review, but that's so far not a horror movie. I thought it was kind of silly to
I've
review,
never
but why
actually seen that.
you should just watch it. It's
Yeah.
great. It's fucking hilarious. There's a fucking musical montage about sodomy. It's hilarious. Uh, it's uh the again, Brain Dead, Dead Alive. He was like a tried and true. Like to me, like Peter Jackson is like a more like kind of crass and a more kind of like grounded kind of oh my god, my fucking brain. Evil Dead guy. Jesus Christ. My brain is gone. How can I not remember his name now?
Ash?
Who is no. The filmmaker that made Evil Dead. The fucking oh
Oh,
my god. I'll lose my horror card now. How am I Sam Raimi,
Sam
Jesus
Raimi,
Christ.
yeah. Hey, I'm
Uh
I'm
don't
guilty of it too.
don't drink, folks. But yeah,
This
he
is why I'm
reminds me
terrible at Jeopardy. When put on the spot, I just go blank.
I'm usually very good at it. But yeah, it's Sam Raimi. He reminds me a lot, especially at this period, like reminds me a lot of like Sam Raimi. Even like his like camera work. Like he
Mhm.
loves to do kind of that like tracking shots. He loves to do like very like extreme like push-ins and things like that. It definitely and Raimi came first, so I'm sure he was influenced by him.
Yeah.
Um, but like you can tell too, like I think one of the things that really resonates with me in this movie is you can tell that this is a guy that's just having a lot of fun. Like this movie just seems like they were just having a blast while they made it. Like it's just a bunch of buddies that were just having a fun time making this ridiculous ass movie.
Yeah.
But like there's also hallmarks of what he would do later on in his career and also like a little fun kind of I would say like homages to other horror movies like the scene where the one guy finally gets captured by the aliens. The
Yeah.
house kind of the shot looks very similar to Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and he's also hit in the head with a mallet just like the first victim in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like I would be shocked if that wasn't a direct homage to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Um but yeah, no, I mean, I love this movie. I've watched this movie a million times. I just, you know, the thing, I feel like this time, if you're asking any kind of new takeaways, I never realized, and maybe it's just because I was always so caught up in all the things that I remember about this movie, how disjointed the like plot construction was, like how you're literally kind of dumped in media res, and then it just kind of happens. Like I thought the movie was more, I guess, more structured, but it's like very, very loose. Like his next movie, which we'll talk about next week, is very, I mean, again, it's weird, but it's very, it has a very sound normal narrative structure, where this is just like all over the fucking place. Like, and their boss, for I guess, the or the king of New Zealand or whoever, is like, he's got a finger missing, and then he's smoking from his missing finger. Like, what the fuck was that? And like, it was very weird. And the whole movie is the started because he gets a message on his answering machine about an alien invasion. Also, I guess that is the only setup to how they know it's an alien invasion. It's
Yeah.
fucking nuts. It's just insane.
And
Um,
you had mentioned before, so Peter Jackson played one of these monster characters.
yeah, yeah,
And you had mentioned, I think you mentioned in the beginning of the episode, you thought he had played another character too. I think maybe you said Derek. And
yeah.
I didn't even realize that you're right. That was him. To me, it looked like a completely different person.
Oh, that was Peter Jackson.
That was Peter Jackson. I
Oh,
looked at the
okay. So I
credits.
was right all this time. Okay,
Yeah.
good.
I think what got me was the teeth. They must have had fake teeth on that guy. Or maybe that's his normal teeth, but he just looks so much different to me. Something about him was different. And
Well, it
I
fooled me because I went from thinking it was him to watching it this time and not thinking it was him. So it's gone full circle for me.
yeah, I gaslit you. Sorry about that.
No, I did it
Um,
to myself. You're fine.
uh, but the can you see like from where he started to where he is now, that linear movement in his progression from one film to the next? Like, does it make sense that he could make something like this, but also Lord of the Rings? Granted, it's like 20 years removed.
Well,
Um,
yeah. Well, the thing is, yes, in a weird way, and I'll tell you why. Like, I think I am of the mind that, you know, Quentin Tarantino. There's a a Quentin. I almost said, I was trying to say quote, but another Q word just popped out of my mouth. He has a quote that I really like that says, "If you really, really love movies, you can't help but make a good movie." And I really love that quote. And I think like that is Peter Jackson to a T, right? Because as rough as this movie is, and it is fucking rough, you can tell there is a lot of passion behind this project. Like you can tell he
mhm.
really wanted to make this into something. And it is memorable. And I think like through sheer willpower, this movie is like incredibly memorable and interesting. And while like again, like I just said, I don't even remember like looking back on this from watching it years ago. I don't even remember like the rough parts, honestly. Like I
Mhm.
remember the dialogue being kind of silly, and like a lot of the more technical things are kind of hokey looking, but like I didn't remember the like the film construction being so kind of wacky. And
Yeah.
that like just shows you like you remember like the good parts, you remember what you want to remember. But I can see this guy just taking that passion and keep moving it forward. Like you're going to see next week, you know, again, it's a much better arranged film. It's a lot more kind of structurally sound. It has a lot more like characters to it. Like this movie doesn't really have like characters, like they're just kind of there. Like I you know, name a trait about any of these characters. I don't think you
I
could.
think the only one that the one that stuck with me the most was Derek.
Derek,
He
yeah.
was such a doofus, but he had this one quote in the film that just had me cracking up because he was about to get chased down by these aliens, and he was getting warned about, these incoming aliens like approaching him on the walkie-talkie, and they're like, Derek, get out of there as quickly as you
Yeah, yeah.
can. And he said, Derek's don't run.
Yeah, Derek's don't run. Yeah.
Like, really?
Also,
I didn't know that was
also,
a thing. Like, okay, Derek,
yeah.
like, don't mess with Derek's.
Also, at a point in that scene, he literally is he's got an Uzi because of course he does because it's
Yeah.
1987, and he just yells at the alien guy that he's shooting like ah, and then it doesn't fire, but then it does. It's like what the fuck?
The
Um,
best part about Derek is when he fell off the cliff and you think he's dead. You think he's done.
there's some wonderful dummy work in this movie
Oh,
because I think they just
yeah.
had like a mannequin because he maintains the same form the whole way down the mountain. He's
Yeah.
like fucking Homer Simpson falling down Springfield Gorge. Like he keeps falling and falling and falling. And later on, there's a dummy that gets thrown off of a house balcony that looks
Yeah.
fucking great. There's a lot of great dummy work in this, and we all know I'm a sucker for good dummy work. But yeah, you think he dies because he should die. Like he literally like he explodes in like a bloody mess after falling to the bottom of this chasm.
Yeah, but Derek's
But
don't
then
die either.
he
We come to
just
find out.
unexplainedly comes back to life with his brain leaking out of the back of his head. Well, I don't know about you, but like he like collects himself after being dead or whatever, and then he first of all he's covered in birds. He headbutts a seagull. Then he gets up and there's like a mushed seagull under his back and he's like laughing at him, but the seagull is also like spewing blood out of its mouth and it's got like crushed eggs next to him. It's like, what the fuck am I watching? But then he's got this like flap of skull that's open on the back of his head and he's like freaking out. And then he finds what I thought was his testicles. Like I thought it was a testicle. It looks like it's like this little ball of flesh and goop, but I guess it's part of his brain and he just like mashes it back into his head and then holds the fold of brain of the skull back over,
Yeah, because
and that
don't
continues
lose
through
their
the
brains.
entire movie. And then later on in the movie he kills an alien guy and rips his brain out of his head and then stuffs that into his head hole.
I
It's
loved
fucking
that whole running gag throughout the movie, to be quite honest. Like that he kept finding pieces of brain, and every time his flap would
oh
open,
yeah.
he would find something new to like hold it in place, whether it
Yeah,
be
again,
like a,
yeah.
a belt or a hat or it was
Again,
so good.
completely unexplained how he's not dead and continues to be alive with this brain sticking out. But whatever, I'm not here for, you know,
I'm happy he made it,
like,
like
well,
whatever he needs.
yeah, and he also like hilariously at the end of the movie, the aliens are on their way back to their homeworld. Also, these aliens are like incredibly stupid because they already got like this entire town of dead people
Yeah.
that they hilariously boxed up all their meat into cardboard boxes, which I thought was funny. Um, and they basically got a good haul. So like just get out of there. Why are they
Yeah.
even like sticking around? Another little tidbit that I love is that apparently when I like, are we to believe that these are taken over humans, or is this just like a human form that they've overtaken? Like, I don't know, it's hard to discern.
I think it's a human form they've taken.
Okay, because they find out later on that they are they what does the one guy say? He's like, oh, they come to pieces easy, and they like rip one of those heads off, and it's like spine still attached, and then he just soccer kicks his head out the window, and he's like, yes, it's amazing. This movie's amazing.
uh,
But yeah, Derek becomes like a chainsaw Avenger in this, and then when the spaceship takes off, Derek is still in the spaceship and like fucking drill claws his way through the head alien, like through his entire body, through his asshole, to which he plops out and says, "I've been reborn." It's
uh,
incredible.
I feel like that's something that like we could have written. Like if we
I
were
mean,
just sitting
to
around
be fair,
drunk.
dude, like any
Yeah,
15-year-old could have wrote this because it's
yeah.
just so stupid.
How
Like
old
it's
was he when he made this? Hold on, I'm gonna look it up. Um, he couldn't have been older than mid 20s, I would imagine. Let's see. Um, but anyway, back to the movie at hand. So what? How could you possibly follow up after a movie like this? Like, was Meet
I
the
can't
Feebles
wait.
the only real choice after this? Like, this is just such a ludicrous film. but so lovable and
And,
endearing.
and Meet the Feebles is, yeah, I can still hear. Meet the Feebles is more insane somehow. Higher
Really?
production values, but more insane. Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
And Dead Alive is insane too. I mean, don't get it twisted. They
Sleep on Dead Alive.
yeah.
Now that uh, you were talking earlier about how you had shown this to so many people, I think I've actually seen. I think I was one of those people that you
Probably.
showed this to,
Yeah, I
um,
can believe that.
and I'm sure you know it was the same react, same exact reaction at that time too. Like, what the hell am I watching? Um, it didn't. It didn't quite resonate as much back then. I think just because I was just taking in as much as I possibly could from all
For
different
sure.
types of, you know, um, you know, uh, horror subculture or musical subculture or whatever.
Sure,
Like
sure.
I was just being inundated with just nonsense. But now I feel like I don't get it as much. So when I do, it's quite a treat.
Yeah,
Um,
well, yeah, and the thing is, like, like we talked about before, the stuff that is like, hey, this is a terrible movie now. It's just, it's not fun. It's just like, it's the mean one, right? It's just like,
yeah,
hey, isn't this awful? And it's like, no, this is just not fun to watch. Like, this is just garbage. Like, this movie is a blast. Like, I mean, it's really trying. You know what I mean? It's trying so many different fucking things, and it's just like such a
yeah.
wacky ass movie. I love it.
So he
I
was
guess we should give it
26 when he
a
made this.
26,
26. That's quite an
and
accomplishment.
he looks 40 in this movie.
People age differently back then. They look terrible.
Yeah, well, again, New Zealanders, so they
Yeah.
they do look like hobbits. All right, let's give this a score, huh?
All right. Scores. Do you want to go first?
Sure. This is a 9.5 for me. I love this movie. This movie is a classic for a reason. Uh, a Splatterhouse fucking a Splatterhouse staple. Highly recommended. Love it, love it, love it. 9.5.
Um, I will give it a 9.1. I'm a sucker for all things 80s, and this, again, checks all those boxes. My only gripe would be like the first like third of the movie like was a little I don't
Yeah.
slow is not the word, but there was a lot of build up
Well, it's a
and
lot of, it's confusing, and it
yeah,
doesn't like, you don't it takes a while to kind of understand what's even happening in the
yeah,
movie. Yeah, yeah, I
yeah, because
agree.
I feel like they don't do a good amount of explaining the backstory. It's
They
just you're
don't.
dropped right into the middle of it.
Yeah, and
And
also the characters like are non-existent. The characters don't exist, so it's like
yeah.
you're kind of just stuck there, and you're like, what the hell is going on? Like, yeah, I get it.
uh, so with that, it's still a great score, 9.1. Like I
Oh
loved
yeah,
it. Very much looking forward to next week's movie, Dead Alive.
yes.
Um,
AKA Brain Dead, wonderful
okay.
movie. Can't wait to watch it. Has one of my favorite zombie killing scenes in history, where someone uses a lawnmower to kill a room full of zombies, which is awesome. Also, a priest that turns into like a kung fu fighter and says, "I kick ass for the Lord." I mean, you guys got a lot of little fun moments
Peter
to witness
Jackson
there.
obviously has many talents. One of them is writing just memorable quotes, like
Oh yeah,
"I've been reborn," and the ones you just mentioned, like Derek's don't run. Like he's got a knack for it. Like this, he's a genius.
yeah. The guy's
I
great.
have a renewed appreciation for Peter Jackson.
Yeah, it's funny because he hasn't made like anything good in a long time, but like,
Yeah.
he'll always have this. This will always be a banger. So, all right, I think that's the show. So
That's
next
it.
week, Dead Alive, Brain Dead, whatever you want to call it. It's gonna be fun. I can't wait.
Awesome.
All
All right.
right.
Well, thank you, TJ. Uh,
Mm-hmm. Thank
see
you.
everybody next week. Tune
Follow
in,
us on all the
subscribe.
socials.
Yeah.
Hit the subscription bell, subscribe, write
Like or
down,
hate, we
like,
don't care. Just
yeah, like us, comment how terrible we are, do whatever. Write our podcast name on a letter and send it to your neighbors. Just put it on their mailbox. Do all that shit.
I love that.
Tag us. How about graffiti? How about Dead Air Horror Review graffiti
Yeah,
on the
then we can
side of
get
a
some street
train?
cred.
That'd be sick.
All
Yeah.
right. All
All right,
right, TJ.
guys. Bye bye.
See ya.